Welcome back to the Bronco Garage. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install the Hydratech Hydroboost braking system on this 1973 Ford Bronco right behind me. Let's get started. Alright, so this is what I've got to start with here. I've got power Ford factory front disc brakes. I've got the Ford 9-inch drums. And then of course I've got the power booster and then a master cylinder. And of course I'm going to be using a proportioning valve factory style down underneath. Hard to see. But this is what I'm starting with, and this is what we're going to take out of the way to start using the Hydroboost system. Now again, I've also got a Saginaw pump, and I'm using a small air style cooler. So this is all the components that I have here that I'm going to be either reusing or replacing to get started to put the Hydroboost system in. So here we go. All right, on your gearbox, you see where my wrench is. That's going to be the high side port. You can always tell which line is the high side line because it has hard metal connection fittings from the pump to the box. The other line, it's typically got just a hose clamp that's holding it on to the back side of the reservoir. So that's a good way to know which side is your high pressure side. So we're going to go ahead and just crack open the high pressure side on the gearbox, and then you can also do the same thing on your power steering pump. I've got ported fittings on the side of this box for ram assist, so I'm just going to go ahead and undo the caps there and let it drain from there on this box. Let that drain while you install the Hydroboost unit. Alright, so I'm about to go under the dash to disconnect the brake pedal from the push rod, which is going to require a pair of needle nose pliers. Now, the big thing you want to make sure of before you do this is you want to measure your brake pedal from how high up it is from the floor. Now, we do have a video that actually explains all this in greater detail. There's a video card above. You should just click on that and it can give you that breakdown even further. Now remember, you're going to be going from vacuum assist to hydraulic assist, so you're going to need to cap this off. You can buy a plug kit from your local auto parts store. Just simply remove this hose from the back side of your manifold, put a rubber plug where this hose used to connect. Alright, so now we've got the power brake booster assembly removed from the firewall, and as you can see, there's already been some modifications made here by the owner of the Bronco. There is a really good diagram here that Hydratech supplies that shows you the modification that you'll need to make on your firewall. As you can see though, that this has already been done, so we're not going to be able to show you that here on video. Once you have your firewall modified and you can get the Hydroboost unit installed, you're going to want to do a few things. So first things first, here's the unit, and on the back side of it you've got this little rubber booty. You're going to slip that off, and you're going to put your brake pedal push rod and install it like this. Now, you don't have any idea where this needs to be until it's installed, so what I recommend is taking the bolts that install it onto the firewall and putting at least two of them in, here and here, and then having it tied up against the firewall, and then adjust this underneath the dash until you get your brake pedal adjusted to the height that it needs to be at. Once you have that done, you then take these bolts, remove them, and take the unit back out, and then you can tighten up the jam nut and make sure this doesn't move anymore. Once you have that done, then you can simply put the unit back in, put all three bolts on, and then you're done. Just got the Hydroboost unit installed. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go ahead and put my master cylinder on. It's just 2 bolts, and that way if I accidentally push down on the brake rod or anything like that, I've got this master cylinder holding up against the push rod inside the unit, so to prevent it from being damaged. All right, so here's an important tech tip for you guys. The master cylinder has 2 Allen bolts that hold it onto the Hydroboost unit, and the Allen bolts are really hard to get to. So you're gonna need yourself a Allen wrench like this, but you're gonna have to do it one of 2 ways in order to tighten it, because this here is too long. So you're either gonna have to shorten this down so you can gain access to those Allen bolts, or you're gonna have to use the hex side and then another wrench, and you're going to use them in conjunction with each other, you know, but it has to have a rounded edge tip like this. It has to be a ball nose or it's not going to work. So just make sure that you understand that you're either going to have to modify a tool or you're going to have to use 2 tools together in order to tighten down those 2 Allen heads that hold the master to the Hydroboost unit. Now, most likely you're going to be changing out your master cylinder, and it's a very good chance that you'll be buying a new one from James Duff because they'll be supplying the correct one for your Hydroboost unit. Now, keep in mind that that master cylinder could very well be plumbed differently, or the ports could be on the opposite side of what you had originally. Well, what that means is that your lines that run from your master cylinder to your proportioning valve may not work. So you're going to want to probably get a universal line kit from James Duff in order to get all of the plumbing to work properly with the new master cylinder to your existing proportioning valve or adjustable proportioning valve. So keep that in mind. All right, so next we're going to install the plumbing to the Hydroboost system over to the pump. The first thing we're going to work on is the high pressure inlet hose, and that is going to take a couple different fittings. Now keep in mind that this system allows you to use it with Ford style, GM style pumps of a couple different eras. So they're going to give you, extra pieces that you're not going to use. You're just going to have to make sure that you follow the instructions. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to put this together with a Saginaw P style pump. Now that's the kind of pump that you would get from James Duff. So if you need to update your pump at the same time that you're updating your brakes, just go ahead and buy everything at the same time and you can follow along with this video. Now, for all you guys that are running a pump other than the Saginaw P style that we're going to be installing today, you guys can obviously, follow the instructions. All right, so next we're going to focus on plumbing the Hydroboost unit into your power steering pump and your gearbox. The system comes with these stainless braided lines, and the end that goes into the Hydroboost unit is already plumbed. Now you've got the male fitting that's going to go into the top here, and then there's a female fitting for the other line, and that's going to go into the bottom. Now the one that's got a male fitting, that's going to end up going to the back side of your pump, and you're going to find this 90-degree fitting right here. And for the Saginaw style pump, this will literally screw right into the back of your pump. Now remember, you're going to have to cut these lines to fit for whatever works for your system. So I like to go ahead and put this fitting in the back of the Saginaw pump, and then I like to lay the lines out. And as you can see, I've got both the lines fitting here, and then I've got that fitting down in the back of the pump. All right, so now for the line that's on the bottom of the Hydroboost unit, that's going to go to your gearbox. You're going to remove your high pressure line from the gearbox to the pump. You're going to move that out of the way, and then there is a adapter fitting that's going to go on the high pressure side of your gearbox, and you're going to thread that in, tighten that up, and then you've got a fitting back here that you're going to end up using that's going to screw into that adapter, and then the other end is going to plumb onto your stainless braided line. So once I've got this all ran and I see how I want to make all the lines run for my system, then I'm going to start making marks on where I want to cut the lines, and then I'll show you how to install them. Okay, so I've got my stainless lines mocked up, and I'm about to get ready to make a mark at where I want to cut them. So first thing you want to do is you want to grab some masking tape. You're actually going to end up using the masking tape when you cut through the line. It actually helps kind of keep the fraying down to a minimum. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to tape this off where I need it, and then I'm going to use my Sharpie to make my mark, and then I'm going to cut them, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to put the fittings on, and then go ahead and reattach everything. All right, next I'm going to show you how to cut the stainless braided line and how to put the fitting on the end. And notice here where my cut is compared to how much line there is. There's plenty here for you to use. So just make sure you measure twice, cut once. Step-by-step instructions provided with the kit so you can read along and make sure that you get all the details before you start cutting. Now I'm only going to be cutting one line at a time, and the reason for that is I want to make sure that I put the right fitting on the right line. I'm going to start with the high pressure line that goes from the Hydroboost unit to the power steering pump. That way, when I grab the fitting that I need, I don't grab the wrong fitting, or I don't grab both hoses and then accidentally put the wrong fitting on the wrong hose. So I'm going to show you how to do this. My tool of choice is going to be a pneumatic whiz wheel or cutoff wheel, and then of course always wear safety glasses. Once it's cut, you're going to want to remove the tape, and then if you have any loose wires or burrs, you're going to remove the wires with these side cutters, and the burrs on the inside of the Teflon you'll remove with a sharp edge like a knife or something. All right, you want to flush the line out with some kind of lubrication before you go to the next step. So I'm actually going to use some WD-40 that I have in a bottle. The thing that I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to flush it out from the other end and push all the crud back towards where I cut it. That way you're not pushing contaminants further up the line and making it even more possible for the line to be contaminated once it's hooked up. So we're going to just basically just spray a little in there. You're going to start seeing it come out the other side. There it is. And then just flush some air through and you're good to go. Now it's time to start putting the fitting on. Now keep in mind, the fitting, this guy right here, it comes apart. Okay, and this is going to slip over the line. So just like the fitting is seen right here, so you're going to slip the fitting over the line like that, and then let it just kind of sit freely like that. It can go all the way to the end too, it doesn't matter. And then once you've got that on there, you're going to use a sharp edge of a knife and you're going to pull the stainless braided hosing away from the Teflon liner, so you can then slip this brass collar over the Teflon. Now there's a shoulder and it'll actually stop, so you're going to push that brass collar around that Teflon until it stops. Now this is kind of tricky because you got to get the stainless braiding away from the Teflon first, and you don't want any of that stainless to be pushed in between the Teflon and the brass piece here. So as you can see, I'm pushing the brass insert in between the Teflon liner and the stainless braided hose. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a flat surface that you can push this up against. I've got this brass fitting started and I need to push it in all the way so it bottoms out. Now what I like to do is take a flat surface like the side of the vise right here, and I just like to push it using the force of my body to push against it the rest of the way. As you can see, I've pushed the brass sleeve all the way in to where the Teflon liner has bottomed out onto the shoulder on the inside of the sleeve. You want to make sure that it goes all the way in before the next step. Alright, now that I've got this sleeve pressed in place, the next step is to take the fitting and actually clamp it into the vise. And you're going to use the vise to hold it steady so you can insert the Teflon liner into the end of this fitting. Just be careful not to hurt the fitting as you clamp it in the vise. Now, you're going to want to use some type of lubrication to make sure that the fitting goes into the Teflon liner without binding up. I just went ahead and used the WD-40 that I already had out here. Now that this fitting is secure in the vise, I'm going to slowly work the brass fitting and liner over it until it seats in place. Once it seats in place, you're simply going to take this end here and you're going to thread it on. And now it's time to use your wrenches to tighten it up the rest of the way. I'm going to reposition the fitting so I can finish tightening it the rest of the way. Keep in mind, this fitting is actually able to move. You basically want to tighten this up until you can get your fingernail between the two fittings. you can usually use the other fitting as a reference point. So I'm going to use 11/16 wrench, and I'm going to tighten this up until I have a fingernail's width between the two fittings. You can also loosen these back up to spin them into the correct orientation that you need when you start installing them on the vehicle. There you go. They both look very much the same. All right, so I'm gonna lay it out to you step by step so you can follow along, and you can do this, you know, as less complicated as possible. Because if you're looking at all the parts in this system, it can get a little bit confusing and overwhelming. First things first, I'm gonna start with this top line that's coming off of the Hydroboost unit. Now it has a female fitting that goes right to the AN adapter that's already installed on the unit itself. I'm simply going to install that, and then I'm going to run the line to the back side of the power steering pump. Now you're just going to remove your high pressure line that goes from your power steering pump to your gearbox, and then you're going to find the fitting in the kit that comes with the Hydroboost that fits on the back side of your Saginaw pump. Now you can't get that wrong. It literally is only one fitting in the whole system, in the whole kit that works. Then you're going to trim it to fit, and you're going to make sure that it's the right length, and then you're going to plumb it in. From there, you're going to go to the bottom high pressure line off of the unit, and it already has direct fit plumbing on the end of the line. Now, if there is an AN fitting that is already in there, you're just going to simply remove it and then plumb the line into the unit. On this particular unit, I just had a red cap, so I didn't have to deal with taking a fitting off. Then from there, that's going to go to the high pressure side of your gearbox, and you're going to remove the fitting off your gearbox after, of course, you've removed the hose. And then you're going to put the supplied fitting with the Hydroboost kit in place of that can adapt an AN style fitting to that. So that then is going to have, of course, a hose end to it, and you're going to also trim to fit. And then you're going to attach the other end of that hose end. Then you'll of course take everything and plumb it and put it together, and then you have hose clamps, and you're going to use your hose clamps to kind of pull everything straight and keep it all from touching anything. Once you have those plumbed in, you're going to want to tighten all the ends, make sure they're nice and tight. You're going to also want to make sure your master cylinder is tight to your Hydroboost unit, and then you're going to go to your low pressure return lines. All right, so I've got the stainless braided hoses all trimmed down to fit. I've got the ends on, I've got them all routed, plumbed, and tightened down. So as you can see, they look real nice, but they are making contact with the master cylinder and the brake lines coming off the master as well. So Hydratech provides two very nice hose clamps, and these guys here are actually going to take these two lines and hold them together and keep them from making contact with things so they don't chafe and wear out down the road. From there, I'm going to take the return line that's provided by Hydratech and plumb that in next. As you can see, once one end already has a fitting, and that's going to actually go to the Hydroboost unit right here. Now, keep in mind, we've also got a T here and then some hose clamps, and then I use a pair of actual rubber hose cutters. This helps things, cut a little easier. And then, of course, we've got a 1/4-inch drive. Now, there's actually a supplement instruction sheet for how to install the inline brass T properly. So make sure that you refer to this as you're doing this install. But the basic premise of it is you're going to locate the return line that comes off the back of your power steering pump, and you're going to cut about 3 inches from the inlet, and then you're going to then tie this in. Now, it's very important that you put this in properly. It has to go in so it's the straight side goes like this, and then the T portion actually plumbs in to the return line to the Hydroboost unit. If you don't tee this in correctly, then what could happen is you could have some issues with how the fluid returns, and there's some back pressure, and then of course the unit won't work properly. Keep in mind that if you have a secondary return already built into your pump, then you just simply use that instead. All right, so you are almost done. In fact, you are ready to start putting steering fluid back in the system at this point. The one thing you want to make sure before you get started is just look over this diagram here and make sure that all your lines are plumbed correctly.
All right, so that's a wrap. Well, not really a wrap. I mean, we've got so much more to do, but part one is done. So you've got everything in, everything's installed, tightened down. It's time to add fluid. It's time to bleed. That's going to be part two. So stick around. We're going to have that out in about a week. And then from there, well, there's more coming. Check out this Bronco behind me. This is actually going to be our next test mule for part two of the huge brake series that we're in. We're actually right in the middle of part one right now. So again, make sure you subscribe to Bronco Garage. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment below. We'll catch you guys next time.